All right, so ESPN, Keyshawn Johnson, former NFL wide receiver, was asked, who is playing for a contract this year?
Both guys, OBJ and Landry.
Yeah.
Because if OBJ comes back and becomes OBJ with the blonde hair and kicking of the net, which I love, then they've got to think about extending his contract and taking a look at his numbers, because he will be heavily underpaid compared to the other receivers in the league. His teammate, Jarvis Landry, as well. What happens with that? Can we keep two receivers at $25 million
That's a
a
big
piece?
question, right?
A piece.
Right.
Because if OBJ gets 25, I'll take 23, and then I'll get the other two from OBJ somehow.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way Landry's going to think about it, and OBJ vice versa. So that's an issue that they've got to figure out how to address, and they can, because you play with the salary cap, you play with numbers, you can pay whoever you want to pay.
So what do you make of that, Mac?
I mean, I would say this. It's an interesting point. I mean, he hit the nail on the head where both of them are playing for their futures pretty much at this point. You know, Jarvis Landry, he's been the heart and soul of this team. And, you know, Odell is really that big play threat. And I would say this, if he's able to, you know, perform like Jordan Palmer had said that he could, and, you know, I think that he can, I think that it's something that you're going to have to think about, you know, but at the same time, too, you do have to manage the rest of your cap and the rest of that team. And I understand that the salary cap is rising. I get that. But at the same time, too, you know, down the road, you do have to think about extending some of these other players as well. I know I mentioned that with Baker, but at the same time, too, you can play around with this right now because Baker is so cheap. And at the same time, you're going to have to worry about paying Denzel Ward, paying Nick Chubb, and paying these guys, and even Wyatt Teller, among others. But you know, I do wonder, how is that going to fit into the long term? And that's one of the big storylines that I'm going to be following along this season, is how well do they play, and how does Andrew Berry kind of balance that side of the offense? You know, you already added Anthony Schwartz and Donovan Peoples-Jones 2 years ago now. I'm curious as to see how they end up playing out and how this offense is kind of integrated between all four of those guys as well.
Yeah, it would appear that two wide receivers, especially when you have to pay Nick Chubb, and you know, we've talked about that. That would be a luxury I don't know that the salary cap will afford them, but we'll see.